Are you interested in becoming a composer or hearing from a very successful one? This week I speak to Crispin Hands. He's a multiple award-winning composer, producer, audio director, sound designer and music supervisor for video games, films and television. He's worked on games like Gears of War, Minecraft Legends and for Disney on the Mirrorverse. This is a really good chat if you're interested in finding out how those game soundtracks get put together. If you're interested in a career as a composer, then this is the person you need to listen to because Crispin's done it all. Enjoy. So I was going to ask if you went to university or college, but like you say, you dropped
No.
out of that.
Yeah, I can't read music. I taught myself, but it was, I think this is the thing is a lot of people ask me like, what do I need to get into games or film? And there's not one path, and there's no wrong path. But I think what you truly need is you need to be really, really passionate to the point where you're prepared to suffer. Like perseverance is the number one ingredient. That's really like, and you have to be prepared to get kind of kicked in the groin over and over again and get up and keep going. Because you have to fall in love with being rejected because you're going to get rejected all the time. And you have to just be like, okay, next, and just find any possible way to connect with people, and do stuff and show them what you can do. So yeah, I've told this story before and I'll do the quick version, but basically I found out that that EA was in Vancouver and I didn't know this. And I was a video game nerd and I was like, how did I not know that? And a friend had a brother working there. And she arranged for me to get a tour. So I went in with my demo on cassette tape thinking I was hot shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this, so
You
apologies.
can, yeah, you can
Okay,
swear.
brilliant. Trucker mouth, engage. Yeah, so I walked in proudly with this cassette demo tape, and I met the audio director, and he like promptly laughed me out of the building, as he should have. He wasn't that bad. He was actually a good guy, but he was like, no, that's not going to cut it. And he was right. So I turned right back around and I got a job as a QA tester. So I went from this really cushy job at a law firm that allowed me to afford to buy some gear and stuff to like making minimum wage and living with a bunch of roommates in the suburbs and eating like Kraft dinner and Campbell's soup, just so I could be there. And I ended up reporting every single bug I could that had anything to do with audio, just so that I could get in front of the sound people, because we were locked away in this QA department. They were separate from the rest of the building. We literally couldn't get into the rest of the building. Our cards wouldn't let us. And eventually this one guy who I'm forever grateful to, Alistair Hurst, who now works at Dolby, he was one of the sound leads. He was the sound lead on Need for Speed at the time. He came down and took pity on me and started asking me some questions. And then he's like, okay, I want you to read this book. So I like read this book on DSP and I read this book on psychoacoustics that he gave me. And then he's like, all right, after work, a few weeks later, he came and got me and he took me up to the hallowed dev area, where he had this amazing office full of gear that I could only dream of affording or playing with ever. And he started teaching me how to, like the first thing I think I learned to do was looping engines for Need for Speed in an old program called Sound Designer 2. And then eventually he's like, okay, we'll do this. And he's like, all right. And he arranged to get me a card and a key to his office. And I would work 8 to 12 hours in QA. And then I'd go up and work for free in his office another 6 to 8 hours every night. And sometimes I do work for other people, but I basically did stuff like that for almost a year, just so I could prove, well, I wanted to learn, like I want to learn all this, but also to prove that I was like, that I really wanted it and that I could be good at this, because I had no idea how to do any of this stuff. So I was like, well, I just got to put the hours in. So that's what I did. And then I would sleep on the floor in my office in QA. I'd go home occasionally and my roommates would be like, who are you? And yeah, but they finally relented and they're like, okay, you got a job, buddy. And so I got my own office and that was like, and then the career just went from there. So I got to learn on the job. But really, I mean, the moral, the TLDR is if you want it badly enough, you're going to be willing to make a lot of sacrifices and work your tail off. And that's what it takes. And it is simultaneously easier and harder than ever to do music and sound for video games, and I'll kind of explain that. We have like readily available for free software that you can run on your computer, and like it kicks the shit out of any tools we had, frankly, even 15 years ago. Like it's like the software that's available for free now, but and like compared to what we had in the 90s, like it's just not even. I remember when Pro Tools like suddenly had 8 tracks of audio, and that was revolutionary. And now you can have Reaper and have like unlimited tracks for free and all these amazing plugins that run in real time. Back in the day, back in my day, Pro Tools would to do an EQ on anything, and I had to do this like fairly regularly. You couldn't hear it in real time. You'd have to like set it, render, wait for it to do its thing, and then hear it and be like, nope, that wasn't right, and then undo it and then go again. And that whole process would take like 10 minutes. So it's like a wildly different world now, and so it's very democratized. But because of that, you've also got a lot more competition. You've got a lot more people trying to get in. And I don't have the exact stats on this, but anecdotally from my experience, and I'm the main hiring person here at Lionshead. For every single sound design job, you're probably going to get anywhere from like 5 to 50 applicants. For every composition job, it's going to be like 100 to 500. Like that's, rough numbers, but everybody wants to be a game composer.
And when you get those applications in, what are the things that set the people out that get the interview? Is it demo tapes? Are you listening to stuff, or is it things they've done experience-wise? What gets them into the interview in the first place?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I wish I had like a perfect win every time answer. But I'll say this: as soon as you get, so as I'm sure you are, as the person running Lionshead, I'm pretty busy, so I don't have a lot of time to listen to things. So the only time I'm going to listen is when I have a client that's actively needing something, or if I need help with something. And when that comes up, I'm going to go to the first 5 people that I remember, because I'm lazy, frankly. Like it's heuristics. So it's like, what's top of mind? But more importantly, were they good? So the best thing you can do is, and I'll add one thing. People want to work with people they trust and feel confident in, because we're all fighting battles, and we're all like fighting battles uphill. We're all getting rejected uphill. We're getting like negative feedback, and it's always a fight to like get your ideas approved and all that stuff. And so the last thing that we're going to do is have somebody from below us who's giving us any kind of friction or frustration, because it's like, I don't need that. I've got someone over here who's actually like helping me and like, making me feel like I don't have to chase them. I know they're going to deliver good stuff every time. And I know that they're here to help, that they're going to be supportive, and that they understand the big picture and that we're all in this together. That's who I'm going to choose. All other things being equal. So you want to be the person who's going to take away stress, not add it. And that could be as simple as, don't make it difficult for somebody to like find your stuff. Like make any communications short, clear, and don't make it about what you want. Make it about what you can offer this person who has offers from everywhere. What can you offer them to help them? And that means do your homework. And the number one thing that anybody who's hiring lacks is time. So any way that you can save them time, make things easier for you, that's already a win. And then be prompt, be professional, be a strong communicator, and just make it easy for them. And some people will be like, okay, so how do you want this? Do you want this XYZ? And then the really good people would be like, I wasn't sure how you wanted it, so I thought you wanted it like this, but just in case I did this and this too. Those are the people getting hired.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this person's thought it through, and they're understanding. I call compassion and empathy the ultimate cheat code for getting ahead in anything. But it's amazing in business negotiations. It's amazing for getting gigs. It's amazing for working with clients, understanding the stressors and things they're scared of, and what are they most afraid of, and where do they want to go. If you can figure out those two things and be like, hey, I'm going to help them feel less afraid of that, or like manage that thing for them that they're worried about, in some small way or in a big way, amazing. And I'm also going to help them get to where they want to go. It's like, um, if you can take a possible client, especially if there's somebody like you, and make them feel like a hero, make them look like a hero, they're going to keep coming back to you. If they're worried about you're going to take their job, a lot of people will be like, no, thanks.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And
yeah,
I think that for me carries over to, so I end up using a lot of freelance filmmakers, and the number one, and like maybe I'm lazy, but the number one thing I'm looking for is a lack of ball ache. I don't want problems. Like you say, you don't want issues, and then you end up exactly like you said. I use the same people because I'm just like, I know I can use that person. They're going to show up on time. There's going to be no aggro. I'm going to get exactly what I want, or plus more. They're going to make me look good because the video is going to be awesome. Um, so let's jump ahead then to Minecraft. Tell me how that happened, because that seems like a huge. Was that a big step up for you, or is it kind of been a ladder of small steps?
I'd say it's been a ladder of small steps. Yeah, I'll just throw one more thing, because your original question, which I think I wandered off and didn't really fully answer,
That's
was
all
like,
right.
what do we look for? What's
Yeah.
important? Obviously, the other most important thing is show us that you're really good,
Mm.
and also tailor your demo to what you're trying out for. If you're like, if you're trying out for a big epic fantasy project, and then all your music is like sports music or techno, not gonna fly. No one cares. So go and grab something, rescore it, tailor it, and make it awesome, and hand it over and be like, hey, I wrote this because I thought XYZ. And so I could see like, okay, you've got a work ethic, and your quality is really good. I definitely want to hear more. So that's a way to stand out. Far too many people will submit, um, or they'll even be like, hey, how can I get in to work with you guys? And then that's it. That's their question. And I'm like,
Mm.
you haven't even given me a link to anything, or there's a link I have to click through 5 times to find anything. It's like, no,
Well, that
make
drives
it
me nuts.
make it real quick for me to hear your best stuff that's relevant to what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that.
So yeah,
Yeah, go on. Give me some Minecraft. One thing I was going to say on that, which drives me up the wall when I go to a freelancer site, is I don't want to fill in a web form to contact anybody. So
no,
don't show me
no.
those. And sometimes there's not an email address, there's not a phone number. And if you're in a rush or something, especially with booking freelancers, you just want to pick the phone up and chat to someone, and you can't. So that
Yeah,
drives me up the wall.
yeah.
Just a personal peeve. So
Bang
yeah,
on.
talk to me about Minecraft.
Yeah. So Minecraft. So to be clear, because there's Minecraft Vanilla, which is one of the biggest games on earth. I did music for Minecraft Legends, which was a spinoff. And I also did music for one of the trailers for Vanilla's like anniversary. Um, and I love working with Mojang. They're incredible people. The audio director there, Samuel Eberg, he is like, he's magic as a human. He's magic in human form. He's so cool. He's so insightful. He's like the master of empathy and compassion as well, and he's so humble. But he really knows what he's doing, and he understands the culture of Minecraft intimately, which is why Minecraft sounds the way it does. And it actually took me a while to kind of cotton on to what that sounded like. Anyway, I guess so. Are you kind of saying like, how did I get the gig, or what would you like to know
Yeah, I get. Well, I
specifically?
guess that brings me. If I take a step backwards, because you're working at a big studio now. Do you know what I mean? Pretty successful. I'm assuming. Do you guys still have to pitch for things, or is it all kind of coming down from places? That's a bad question, but do you know what I mean? Do you
No,
guys
you're
pitch for projects, or
so it's so funny. Up until 2023, I don't know if we pitched for anything.
oh right,
Almost every project was word of mouth, uh,
mm,
like people coming just because they work for it. So in terms of your watchers, I would just say like make sure that you're always delivering quality work and you're always great to work with. Like it's exactly like what you said. Don't be a ball ache. Take stress away. Don't bring stress. Don't make somebody do extra work. Take work off their plate. That's huge right there. And deliver on time and like, um, you know, yeah, high quality, attention to detail, really think your stuff through, always be curious, always see how you can do better, always over deliver if you can. And I'm not saying I've always done that. I've failed many times, but those are the things that have led to my success. And when you really show your passion and the way yeah. So in terms of Minecraft, from EA, I left and I walked straight into, this is in 2000, I walked straight into a project called Impossible Creatures with a company called Relic, which was awesome. And it just happened because people I'd worked with at EA were like, hey, do you want to come work on this? And then that led to a project called Company of Heroes later on. And in the meantime, another ex-EA person was working on Metroid Prime, and he's like, we need help shipping this. And I was like, okay, you got it. So I got to work on Metroid Prime, the first one. So from then on, it's literally all been word of mouth. Now in 2023 and 2024, we started having to pitch because the industry took a beating. And I wouldn't say it's recovered yet. It's still like there are still games and studios shutting down, but it does feel like things are getting a little bit better. Sort of, yeah, knock on wood, so to speak. But yeah, so it's the first time we've ever had to pitch. And what we do with that is like, you should always be naturally networking. So you should always be getting to know people and showing them who you are and why you're good to work with. And that's not like, you don't go and brag about your accomplishments. You can just like show that you're a great communicator and that you can understand with insight into the things that they care about. Because people want to be seen, they want to be heard. It's that whole compassion thing. So yeah, and it's taken me decades to learn this, and I'm still kind of figuring it out. But it's if you're constantly trying to close a deal, and like like, hey, give me work, that gets people feel guilty because they can't, or they don't want to, or they just feel irritated. So you're actually going to repel people. But if you can show people that you get them and that you're passionate about what they're doing, and that that you're just like a person that would be great for them to work with, then it's gonna like their guard's gonna drop, and they're gonna be like, okay, well, what can this person do? And you can drop hints about what you've done, and you can talk about, yeah, when I was working on such and such, we did this, which is like kind of reminding me, those kinds of things. But so yeah, it just becomes like a natural thing. It's like you're just trying to make friends, really. And as an introvert, which I probably don't come across as, but I'm actually a hardcore introvert, it was really hard for me to learn that. But it became kind of it's instrumental to surviving and getting ahead. So I have
I'd say in
spurts of
all,
extroversion.
yeah, in all versions of filmmaking, I'd say that's a must-have skill. But I do think it's a muscle. It's something that you just have to keep doing until you become. And there are certain, I'm probably a bit like you. There's certain situations I am still a bit introverted and still a bit kind of like, oh God, this isn't really my place. But once you use that muscle of being relaxed and knowing how to talk to people without, like you say, give me a job, it can be really, really useful.
Yeah, it's really about connecting, and that requires, again, I'm going to fall back on empathy and compassion. It requires like being curious about them and wanting to understand them and what drives them and what makes them passionate. Like, what are they excited about? And like ask about it, because people want to talk about what they're excited about. They're passionate, and if you can like figure out that and like get them to talk and then relate to it, that's great, because then they feel seen. That's huge, So yeah, feeling seen and heard in a world of like you're clamoring to get your idea heard or accepted, it's a big deal. So then they instantly see you as an ally, right? So and that's what you have to be. It's your job to be an ally. So yeah.
So I'm going to steer you back to Minecraft. This is all I'm obsessed with at the moment. That's all right. No, I guess this is more of a general question about the difference, because I know you've done film, video games, sound as well. If you're doing something as big as Minecraft, how much free reign do you get? How kind of prescribed is stuff? Do you just go off and create stuff, or do they give you very sort of strict parameters?
So it really depends on your role. So if I was just a sound designer, then I'd be kind of, beholden to the audio director or my immediate lead, and also to like the designers and etc. In this particular case, I was the audio director and composer. So I would basically pitch like, here's what we're going to do for the game, and then that would go in front of the design team at Blackbird who were building the game, and also the design team in Mojang. But most importantly, it went in front of Samuel, who is the audio director of all of Minecraft at Mojang, and he had to approve that. And but he got it. He's really sharp, and of course he had feedback, and so we adjusted. But that's half the fun, is like collaborating with somebody and like landing on what feels right. And I was able to propose that because I've been making games for at the point when we were having those conversations, I'd already been making games for 20 plus years. Oh wait, no, 25. Yeah. So I actually, as of this month, I've been in games for 30 years. So in fact, as of next week. Yeah. Anyway, so this could also be helpful, and I think as a filmmaker, you're going to really relate to this. The two most important things in games, the number one important thing is gameplay, absolutely. And then if there's story, then that becomes super, and then everything else serves those two things. And ultimately, there's kind of like a pyramid of priorities that I think a lot of people get wrong. I sure did. You need to, the number one person you are serving, like the number one thing, your ultimate service is the client. They have to be happy, and you have to figure out who is the person that you have to make happy. And sometimes you have to make more than one person happy, and sometimes there's conflict, and that's a whole thing you have to figure out. And then you have to make the audience of the game happy. It's actually the client first. You'd think it would be the audience first, but it's actually the client first. And ideally, you help the client realize what's going to be best for the audience, and you're aligned on that. And then those things are like on the same level. But in many cases, it's not. And you have to suck it up and be like, even though I know this is the better thing to do, this client wants this, and the relationship is more important. So yeah, making the client happy, and that builds trust anyways. And eventually they start trusting you, and then you get to, lead the charge. So fortunately for me, when it came to Minecraft, it was one of those projects where I got to lead the charge. I got to define all the stuff. And of course, I do have to be beholden to the client, but it was easy for me to sell them on it because I did it based on like, okay, what's the gameplay about? What's the story about? I'm going to do it based on this. I'm serving your vision. It wasn't just like, we're going to make this awesome rock and roll thing because I like rock and roll. It's like, we're making this, like the time of Minecraft Legends is kind of like almost like the original Eden, very lush, very magical is not the right word because magic isn't really a thing, but very lush, very organic, very rich, and it hasn't been corrupted yet. And of course, the piglins arrive, and then the corruption begins. So it's and hence Minecraft Legends. It's a tale out of time or before time. It's the land before time.
So you're selling it. You're selling it now.
And we wanted to like tell the story of that. So we were like, how can we still make it feel like Minecraft, but make that music feel like it is this rich, beautiful world that then becomes like, vanilla is kind of actually post-apocalyptic. So, so how do we do that, and how do we make that connection, right? So that's what we tried to do. So that's narrative, and from a gameplay perspective, or it's one of the narrative, we had a bunch of themes. From a gameplay perspective, we had this, it's kind of an action RTS, which means there's tons of units and tons of stuff going on. Normally, if you're just a single player and you're like running through a world, okay, that's you can focus on that, and you can afford to have sounds that are like maybe a bit more noisy. But when it comes to being able to read what's going on in a complex scenario, you can't have noise. Noise becomes the ultimate enemy. So we had to make sure that every sound had its own signature and was as tonal as possible. Because as soon as you add noise and then there's like 20 units making noise on the field, it just washes out the entire mix. It just turns everything into mud, and you can't read anything. Paramount, so you have to make sure that everything is legible. I need to know that those units are over there, and oh, they're under attack by this thing. I know how to counter that thing, or like, oh, I don't have a counter. I need to get them out of there. And you need to be able to, because you can't have your eyes in all places, so the audio has to tell you all that. So,
and also those sounds have to be satisfying, don't they? Those kind of like when you hit things and things happen, you've got
it has to feel rewarding.
Buzz.
Yeah. You have to feel. Yeah, you're bang on. It needs to feel rewarding, but it also needs to be very clear and tactical. There's a guy named Zach Belika, who's the audio director on Fortnite, and he talks about tactical sound design. And I'd never thought of it called that, but I realized that this is what we were doing the whole time, and I love that turn of phrase that he came up with, because it's literally, it's telling you what's going on without overwhelming you. That's what it's trying to do. And what was tricky is a lot of the sounds in vanilla are actually quite noisy, which is fine, and it works because it's an old school vibe, and it's a very lonely game. There's not a ton of stuff that happens at once. You're not fighting like 100 units at once. You're usually like, oh shoot, there's a creeper, or like, oh, skeleton, and it's like, it's a very, very different experience. So we had to try and connect those sonically, so they still had some of that character, but less noisy, so that they would be legible. And Samuel was so cool about like helping us strike that balance, and like being open to like, hey, we are going to have to change some things a bit, but we still had things that could, obviously you can't have creepers that don't make that hissy sound. Like, so okay, well, what can we do to make that not drown out the whole mix? And if there's like 24 of them on the field, so we had to do all kinds of things with that, and we were doing all kinds of mixed tech things to like shut some up and just make the ones that are important heard and all that stuff.
Right. And do you do these video games. Do you play video games? Is that like a thing you do? All right, you're into
I'm 12.
So what do you play? What's your thing that you play at the moment?
Right now I'm playing the Oblivion remaster. I'm finishing God of War Ragnarok, because I held off for a while because I knew it was going to suck my life into Oblivion. And then ironically, Oblivion's doing that. And I play Fortnite a lot. I love, it's funny, I played Fortnite as research a couple of years back. And I always thought it was just like, it's for kids, whatever. But we had to kind of reference it for a game we were working on. And I very quickly realized how strong the gameplay is and how amazing the production quality is. And it's like, oh, now I get why this is arguably the most popular game on earth. I totally get it. And so I've kind of become addicted. I love it. So,
I share that. I wouldn't say I'm addicted, but I do play it a lot. And I think there's something to be said for being able to have a gunfight dressed as a hot dog. Or
totally.
Do you know what I mean? Or because I'm not very good at sort of super serious war games, and that they can also get quite serious if you're online gaming with other people. But the fact that you can shoot someone dressed as a hot dog, or at the moment Star Wars, that's an instant sold. I'll sign up for that straight away.
Flying TIE fighters and X-Wings right now, that's a good time.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. Absolutely love it. So what I was going to say was, looking back now, what do you wish you'd known at the very beginning? And I know that's a tough one, because obviously the industry's changed so much.
It's actually not tough.
I'll tell you
right now. Yeah. So it's actually what I was talking about earlier. And it's one of the reasons I talk about it so much is because it was one of the lessons that took me the longest to learn. And it's been the most impactful to me. So it's the empathy and compassion. And also part of that is like, get your ego the fuck out of the way. So I'll give you an example. I'm sure you've heard of the company Naughty Dog. They do Last of Us. They did the Uncharted series. Well, back in the day, they released a game called Crash Bandicoot. And at the time, it was the most popular game on the PlayStation 1. Like, it was just huge. And then when the PlayStation 2 came around, they were working on a game at the time, top secret, called Jak and Daxter, which also became pretty big. And I had friends who I'd worked with on Need for Speed at EA who had gone down to work with them, and were working with them on that. and one of them had like basically arranged so that I could get a demo to Jason Rubin, who was the founder of Naughty Dog. And so I put together a demo and I was like, I got to make this really good. And Jason Rubin called me up on the phone and I was like, whoa, yeah, okay, Jason, holy smokes. And so I was talking to him, and as a slight aside that I'll try and make really quick, one of the things that happens in games a lot, especially back then, is you really have to fight for resources. So you have to make your systems really efficient. You have to get everything into as little RAM as possible or as little disk space as possible. And so it's really hard. So we come from cartridge games on the NES to like, hey, you got a CD now on the PlayStation, and so you can stream full bandwidth music instead of having to do this little MIDI ping pong music. And so that was the new thing, and that had actually been happening since like 1995. And so that was awesome. And here we were, and I was having this conversation in like 2002, I think, or 2003. And Jason Rubin's like, hey, I really like your demo. Could you do that MIDI? And I was like, what? No. And I went to like, oh man, no, I want to produce the best quality music. And my heart was in the right place because I wanted to do the best thing for the game, but there was also my ego in there. It's like, no, I want to do this. And I was like, I actually don't know how to do that in MIDI. I don't know how that would work. One of the answers, so there's two problems there. One is my ego got in the way and my idealism got in the way. And so I didn't learn the pyramid, which I'm going to reiterate right now. So number 1, client. Number 2, gameplay. Number 3, narrative. Number 4, like the quality and power of the music itself. And then number 5, the very bottom, is what you want to do musically. That's the last thing. And so you should really just discard that. You can have your voice through all of that, but your voice evolves based on those conversations that ultimately come down from the top. And that is, so if there's nothing else anyone takes away today, it's like empathy, compassion, ditch the ego, and that's the pyramid. So yeah. I failed miserably because I allowed my ideology, I'm so used to fighting for resources. I was like, no, I'm going to fight for my resource right now. Dude, not the time. Read the room. And like, again, I was suddenly making it hard for Jason. And of course I did not get the gig. And had I actually just been like the answer should always be yes. Yes, I can do that. And then you figure it out. That's what I did with that first film gig. I had no idea. I figured it out. You just say yes, you figure it out, and like you do your best. So that is my biggest regret. That's my biggest single regret in my entire career, because I could have been the composer on Jack and Daxter, which could have potentially led to being the composer on Uncharted or something like that. It's like, so that was straight up my ego and lack of empathy and compassion. So that is the thing that I wish that I could have learned back then and understand, not just his immediate quest, but like, what's the goal of the company? What's the big picture? What are they trying to do? What's their mission? And then showing them that like I am fully on side with that.
And they know what they're doing, don't they? Usually,
they sure do.
Those companies. So yeah, you should really.
Well, and even when companies don't, like with you get clients who don't know what you like. I've worked for game makers and filmmakers who really don't know what they're doing, and so you go like, you ask yourself, okay, like, well, this isn't going to be the best showcase creatively, but if you feel like you take a gig either because you're going to, ideally, it's going to be creatively satisfying, or more importantly, you're building a relationship that may eventually become a creatively satisfying one or lead to ones that are. The industry is small. People talk to each other. So yeah, I'm doing this job that I don't super love right now, but I'm going to fucking kick ass on it and make these people super happy so that when someone asks them like, hey, who do you recommend? It's me. That's the thing. So always show up. And if you're like, I don't think I can do that, then that's the time to turn down the gig. But when you're starting out, you don't turn out, you take anything you can get so you can have stuff to show people and you have relationships. Like, you've got time, use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then looking at it from the other side, because as a director, I'm often talking to a composer and trying to kind of figure out exactly what I'm asking for, because sometimes it just comes down to language. I can't quite express what I want, and I hate going, oh, that's not it, Do you know what I mean? What you've given me is not it. Can you do it a little bit of this? If you're, what advice would you give to a first feature film director, short film director? What's the best way they can communicate with their composer, do you think?
That's a great question. I would say don't worry about trying to speak music to them because it's not your job. It's their job to understand like what story and themes you're trying to like evoke and tell, and yeah, where the tensions are, where the action is, all that stuff. So really, you should speak in terms of like, I want it to feel exciting with a hint of fear or a hint of like comedy or both in this moment, but I don't want it to be too busy because we want to showcase the sound, so those are great language points. And if you've got a really good composer, that composer should understand story intimately. So a big unlock for me, and this is why I talked about the pyramid, is I've studied gameplay design and I've studied story extensively. I have like a deep understanding of the 3-act structure, hero's journey, all that, themes, all of that. And, like music is always speaking in metaphors, and like, creating character themes or motifs and then calling back to them. And it doesn't have to be, John Williams, like, here's a melody for this character every time. It could be literally like, this is the specific set of instruments that's the sound of this character. And it's a subtle thing. It can be subtle or overt. And you need to, like, so it's good for you as a director to be like, I don't want this to be overt. I want this to be a subtle thing. I want this to be understated, or like, no, I want this to be big, and I want to hit people right in the gut immediately. I want to capture them. And you can have music examples or examples of music and film that you love the way that worked. That's really great. Just be careful. The biggest enemy of the relationship between the composer and the director is temp dub love, where like the director falls in love with the temp score, and then they're basically just asking the composer to recreate it because it becomes a safe place for the director. So my advice is like try music against it and then get rid of it so that you don't get stuck on it, because the composer, if it's a good composer and if they understand where you're going with it, they're going to bring you something really good and unique. But ultimately they're there for you, so it's really whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's the same as, I say this, it's the same as working with actors. Anyone creative on the crew is they're hired for a reason. They're there because they've got a skill, and you want their creativity. It can't be all about you and as a director and what you want. So with the music, you've got to, in a way, go, yeah, right, go off and give them a little bit of notes, but kind of let them cook, so to speak.
Yeah.
What I was going to ask was, so just some fun questions now, he says. Talking about music, what is, in your opinion, the best score to a film ever?
Ooh. Oh, that's so hard. There's so many for so many different reasons. Like I couldn't give just one.
What was the one that popped into your head when I said that question?
I mean,
There must have been something.
OG Star Wars, John Williams, like that changed my world. That music captured my heart and stuck with me forever. Like even just hearing it now in Fortnite, I'm just like, this is so good. And it's not even the big bombastic stuff, which is great. I love it. But it's the way he does those little quiet or mysterious or dark moments. His orchestration is just, it's so rad. The way he uses harmony and color. It's just so evocative. Like it gets me every time. Yeah, I'm a huge John Williams fan, but I'm also a huge Hans Zimmer fan, and Hans Zimmer's approach is totally different. It's so much more textural. It's different kinds of psychology. It's drawing on different pop culture or subculture. I love those. There's scores that I go back to a lot, but for different reasons. Like I love Tom Newman, and I love because he did Shawshank Redemption, and I love John Powell, like the Bourne Identity and like How to Train Your Dragon. Those are some of my favorite scores ever. They're so great. Yeah, I don't know. How about you? What's your favorite score? Do you have one?
I like Tron Legacy, the Daft Punk score.
Oh yeah, that's a
Love
great
it.
score. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
And you know what? That brings me on to a question I hadn't written down, but was if I'm script writing I usually listen to some music. If I'm editing, I might, like you say, throw a temp track on it. So what the hell are you doing while you're writing? Do you listen to other music in between writing music to inspire you, or does that kind of bleed into
Yes,
what you're creating?
man, that's such a great question. So sometimes it can be different, but sometimes when I'm in the very first discussions with somebody or I first read a script or something, sometimes things will immediately pop into my head and be like, okay, I got to go try that. And whether it's a motif or like, oh, this would be a really cool instrumental thing or a weird sound effect that could become part of a textural motif. And then there's times when it's like, okay, well, I know where this kind of wants to go, and I will just start like grabbing tons of different music. And sometimes my favorite thing is when I have to like push into genres that I've never really kind of gone before, and I have to learn. Like sometimes I feel like that's when I get the most inventive. And so I'll go listen to all that stuff and soak it up and just walk around with it. And then I'll start going like, oh, this could be cool for this. And then I'll actually like throw some up to picture and then be like, how does that feel? And sometimes it'll be like, oh no, that's not at all. Like you're way on the wrong path, dude. So I scrap that. So yeah, getting in front of picture is really helpful. And then if I'm like, oh, that lands really well, then I'll start going like, what is it about that that's landing really well? Is it, is it the melodic structure? Is it the orchestration? Or is it the textures? This is the sound design. What is it that's really punching here? And then I'll be like, okay, I'll get rid of that. What can I do that meets those goals? And either it's maybe in the same kind of genre or zone, or it's like I fully deconstruct and go, why does it make me feel this way? How can I recreate that feeling differently? Yeah.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know how I do it without actually just sat there listening to music. And then one question I was going to ask you was, what personal attributes do you think are handy to have if you want to be a composer?
It's the perseverance thing. Like it's a hard road. Perseverance and passion, like those are the things that are going to propel you when any reasonable sane person would quit. Like the reasonable sane people have quit back in the first mile, and you're on mile like 10,000. That's it. That's the main thing. I mean, having musical, talent and ability and like practicing your craft and just doing all the time. Yeah, those are the main ones. And then of course, what we're talking about is like ditch your ego, learn empathy and compassion, and understand the pyramid.
I hope you've enjoyed the episode. If I was to point you to another one, it would be How to Get a Famous Actor in Your 30k Micro Budget Feature with Mitchel Tolliday. This is a really interesting chat I had recently with an indie filmmaker who raised the money to make his first feature and even managed to get Simon Callow to appear in it. Thanks for listening.